cocktail that matches the science. I don't try to shoehorn the science into a cocktail. So it's important that when I pick the two cocktails,
Artistry is a really lengthy topic, and so for the sake of time, and obviously the title of our presentation, I focus a little bit more on the Cohiba. And so, first off, in case anyone doesn't know, there are two different Cohiba brands. There's a Cuban and a non-Cuban, and they have absolutely nothing to do with each other whatsoever. But Cohibas are considered the flagship brand of Cuba, and people that don't smoke cigars have heard of that brand. Why are they so special? Well, the tobacco used to make these Revere sticks comes from a very special region of Cuba called Volta Abajo in Cohiba. It's known for its rich red-brown soil, perfect climate, and when paired with a special fermentation process, it does provide a very creamy, chocolatey, light pepper spice and an almost silky smoke. So as the story goes, in the early 1960s, one of Fidel Castro's bodyguards gave him a cigar to smoke that was made by a friend of his named Eduardo Rivera, who had been working as a roller and had been making this brand, or his own special blend rather, for himself for his own consumption. And Fidel fell in love with the cigar, so much in fact that he wanted to meet the guy. Afterwards, he had him start making these very special cigars in a top secret location, which at the time was a mansion that was used as a cigar rolling school for women, and later became the world-renowned El Laguito factory. It still stands in Cuba today. In 1966, the cigar still didn't have a name. At that time, it took the Cohiba name, which of course was the Taino Indian word for tobacco. 1968, it was officially added to the Cuban registry, and at that time, it was still not available to the general public, even though it was being made in excess, actually. A couple years later, Rivera quit making the cigars, and a man by the name of Avelino Lara took over the beloved Cohiba brand until his retirement in 1995. But it wasn't until 1982 that the Cohibas were actually released to the general public in limited quantities. They remain probably the most sought after cigars in Cuba today in the market. And as many of you probably already know, after the Cuban Revolution, after the Cuban Revolution, where Castro's communist regime, took over Cuba, nationalized the land and business, a lot of Cuban cigar families fled the country. They settled elsewhere to start growing and producing their beloved cigars. Places like Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Ecuador, Mexico, and a few other countries proved to have the soil and the climate that could best attempt to birth the next generation of not only tobacco, but the creativity and complexity and the flavors of the cigars that we enjoy today. What many claim to be just decent alternatives to the Cuban seeded stogies actually have proven to be an outstanding example of the quality that's expected. They also happen to be some of my favorite cigars. Factories like La Aurora, Fuente, LFD, Davidoff, just to name a few, are producing some incredible cigars out of the Dominican Republic. Places like Nicaragua are responsible for the very rich and flavorful soil. They're making Padrones out there, Drew Estate, Joya de Nicaragua, Perdomo, Plasencia. There's so many to even name. So part of the reason that makes the non-Cuban very special is their blending. So they're using a variety of tobacco from different regions to create these very flavorful, very rich tasting cigars. So which is the best? That's probably the million-dollar question. What's better, Cuban, Nicaraguan, Dominican? Well, really, it's up to all of you. Your own palate won't lie to you. So grab a stogie and enjoy the ride. The best part of smoking cigars is tasting them. Sample a variety and find out what you like the best. Don't let anybody tell you any different. It's really just up to you. So that brings us into the fun current laws. And again, I focus more so on the cigar aspect of things because it's a very lengthy topic. As I mentioned, you can get onto cigarrights.org if you're looking for specifics for your particular state or city that you live in. You can find that information there. But last April, the FDA proposed two laws. Both would disrupt the industry as we know it, but the first option would completely demolish the cigar industry, and that would be by banning walk-in humidors. So right now you go into your favorite cigar lounge and you're able to go into the humidor, touch the cigars, pick them up, look at them. If this were to pass, they would make you order them basically from catalogs. They would also ban flavored cigars. Those are very popular among a lot of people. They would basically deface the beautiful cigar boxes. So here's an example of one. You know, they're very pretty. There's a lot of artwork that's involved in making the boxes. They would place all kinds of Surgeon General warning stickers, ugly images about how cigar smoking is bad for you, basically. That would be included in that. They would ban cigar events, which is terrible. They would, anywhere that gives you free samples, so festivals, cigar and spirits tasting events, the big smoke, again, anywhere you're getting samples would be completely banned. They would impose these ridiculous fees on manufacturers submitting new blends. So not only their blend, but every size in that blend would be subject to these ridiculous fees. In addition, each manufacturer would have to submit an application, basically, kind of like a pharmaceutical company. They'd have to submit their blend, wait for the FDA to approve it before they could even come out. So that would affect, you know, your limited editions that come out in certain times of the year. That would all be, you know, halted. They'd also look at lowering the nicotine levels in cigars down to practically nothing, which again would alter the taste because nicotine is not added into cigars, it's actually part of the plant. They'd also look at limiting the type of advertisements that can be done. So magazines that we read, you know, Cigar and Spirits, Cigar Aficionado, those would be greatly affected by that as well. So the second option would be to exempt premium cigars from FDA regulation, which obviously that's what we're all pushing for. The only obstacle there is finding a proper definition. So again, whatever the FDA would deem a premium cigar, there has been talk of price points. They mentioned like a $10 price point, so anything that fell underneath that $10 price point would fall into that first category, but it's still kind of up for discussion at this point. You know, unfortunately, cigars are more often than not lumped into the same category as cigarettes and other tobacco products. As a cigar advocate, we've always argued that cigars are like nothing else. You know, they're handmade, they're 100% tobacco. They carry a little bit of a heavier price tag, and because of that, they're enjoyed by adults only. So you don't see high school kids going into cigar lounges trying to smoke cigars. It's just, they're too expensive for one, and it's not really something that they enjoy doing. So that's always been our argument. But you know, public smoking in general has become scrutinized by the public. It's become increasingly difficult to find an establishment within the United States that you can still smoke at. 28 states, in fact, have statewide smoking bans. In addition to that, there's city and county ordinances that have banned smoking from, you know, anywhere indoors. Santa Monica is known for that in California. I mean, it's become probably one of the worst places.
We're from Tampa, so Yuba City, come on down.
Nice. You guys have great. And your taxes are like nothing, which is perfect. Yeah, go there. That's a good spot. Absolutely. But again, if you work, I don't know how many of you work in establishments where they allow cigar smoking, but you definitely want to market that if you do. Cigar events have proven to be very successful. It's a good crowd to have, and again, good marketing to do.
And all sorts of out-of-pair cocktails by the end.
Yeah, exactly. Those are good events. I mean, really, they advertise, you know, specific rum, specific vendor. Get a rep out there if you have. It's a little messy. And then your filler tobacco. And every cigar shares these three components. What will vary is the size, shape, and the blend, of course, of every cigar. So we use a word called batola. I bring that up because there's a lot of cigar smokers that hear that word, and I met somebody that smoked cigars for like 50 years and didn't know what batola meant, so I'm just kind of bringing that up. It refers to the unique measurement of a cigar, again, the length, the circumference. You guys have probably heard of Robusto, Lancero, Toro, Churchill. These are, again, different examples of the batolas. But really what influences the flavor is the blend that they're using for the tobacco. So some people prefer, as I mentioned earlier, the larger ring gauges, which carry a lot more filler tobacco. Some people like the smaller sizes. It's definitely just a preference. My personal favorite is a Lancero because the wrapper is giving you the most dominant flavor based on the size.
You have a question?
Yeah. Can I?
Absolutely.
Is flavor irrespective of the size and
Yes. Well, more so the strength, but it can influence the flavor. So again, if you're smoking a Lancero and it's using, let's say, like a Mexican San Andreas wrapper, you're going to get more of those notes from the Lancero size than you would in, let's say, a Robusto, or especially like the larger sizes. You're going to get more of what you use in the filler tobacco as far as the flavors are concerned. So it's a little more concentrated. I compare it to like an espresso of coffee.
okay, the same brand but different sizes.
Yes. Yeah, different sizes are gonna greatly influence the different flavors in there. And that's what I was mentioning on the last one, that every cigar size is going to have a slightly different taste based on the ratio of tobacco used, in the blend. This is probably the biggest misconception, color and size. Don't let color and size fool you. Not all large or dark cigars are overpowering in strength, and the same is true of the opposite. So not all mild cigars are going to be your light colored or your small cigars. It really depends on, the overall blend. And if you're not sure, which it's hard to be because there's so many different cigars on the market, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what your retailers are there for, your reps when you're at an event, or better yet, do your own research. Check out, there's tons of different cigar reviews out there. I'm going to self-plug myself, YouTube channel. You can definitely pick up the magazines that are there. They do a good job of breaking down different cigars, especially the strength and the overall flavors that you're going to get before you're buying it. It's a good idea to check it out. But also the position that the leaf takes on the plant is going to influence the strength and the taste of the cigar. They're cured, then they're sorted to determine if they're going to be used for wrapper, filler, or binder, and finally they're fermented accordingly. Different regions are going to call it slightly different things. So basically, I've combined them here. So volado and seco are found at the very bottom of the tobacco plant. They're the largest leaves, they're pretty thin, they're not very strong, and they don't carry a lot of flavor. They're responsible for the overall combustion or the burn of a cigar. Viso is found in the middle, which again, is slightly smaller than the lower leaves. They're going to carry a medium flavor, strength, and mostly they're responsible for the overall aroma of the cigar, which is very important on the overall flavors and taste. At the very top, you have Ligero. Ligero is the strongest. They're the last leaves to be primed, so they spend the most time on the plant. So they have, again, more nicotine, more strength. They're smaller and they're a little bit thicker, so they're the slowest burning leaf. They're mostly found in the cigar. They usually put them towards the middle of the blend because, again, they're the slowest burning. So if you see a cigar that's advertising that has...
I find myself that when I use this Ford Quadrajet, I'm kind of really torching and scarring the outside of it. Even though it's a fantastic lighter, it kind of overpowers, and sometimes it's like it's easier just to use a match to rim it. What can I do? Because I spent $100 on that.
What size cigars do you normally smoke?
Well,
Do you have, like,
torpedoes are normally my standard. I
Yeah.
always kind of go for that tapered end.
Okay.
But the Robustos you find more common.
Yes.
But what would you recommend using a Quadrajet on lighting your cigar?
The larger ring gauges, if you like them, those are
Fat
going to be
boys.
the only time I personally use those larger flames, because for that same reason, you do char it. It's too much heat for that particular size in most cases. The other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is keeping it away from the flame as much as possible. It's almost like, especially for that one, it's like you're really keeping it away. It's hot enough, it's going to still hit the edge of it and help it to light up. But yeah, with those larger ones, the only ones I found that really work good on it are those bigger...
Single jet. Single jet.
The single jet, yeah, especially for the smaller ring gauges. And if you like those tapered ends,
Yeah.
really the softer flame. But try just keeping it further away, turn it all the way down in that setting as low as it'll get.
Tell me, just write it out, man. It will even up. But I'm constantly trying to get that roll of pennies.
Yeah.
What can you guys or anyone else here say about finding that perfect burn?
When you're lighting it in the first place, you want to make sure that it's evenly lit when you're starting out. That should help to avoid that canoeing in the first place. But when it does start to do it, that really is what he told you, the best advice, because if you start messing with it and continue to heat it up, you're going to make it hot and it's going to make it taste bad. That's the
I've found
worst
it's been
thing to
easier
do.
just to snip the end and start over
You
again.
can,
When it
you can
starts
also-
burning, when it starts burning the acid, just
Yeah.
snip it and relight it.
You can let it go out on its own naturally and do it. He said snip behind it and kind of start
Start
over.
again.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
one way.
I've done that
If you
before,
really
too.
like, it's bugging you so much, it's not evening itself out. Also, make sure you're rotating a lot. If it's canoeing, the part that's exposed more, you want to put that on the top. It's going to kind of help that heat rise and even it out a little bit.
I notice that when I walk and smoke, and I'm like in motion, I usually have that more than when I'm sitting down in
The
a
wind
station.
is a bigger factor as well. So in more cases when you're walking and moving around, just keep rotating it in your mouth every time you take a puff even. Some people will do a series of like fast puffs that'll kind of help speed up that, just to even it out. But you definitely don't want to smoke a whole cigar that way, but just kind of quickly and then see if it'll start to even out. But yeah, some of that is the blend too, like whoever's rolling it. Sometimes if the tobacco isn't placed properly for that particular size, that could influence that canoeing. If it's happening like on the same cigar, then
Well, that's the other thing is I've had the same cigar, and I always try to smoke something different every time. I never
Okay.
try to smoke the same cigar all the time.
Good.
And I've noticed that sometimes I'll have a certain brand, and it just is even all the way down.
Yeah.
And then I'll smoke the same cigar, and then it starts canoeing again. And I always kind of
Different brand,
associated
but
that as
the
a
same
bad,
size.
huh?
Are you talking about the same size?
Same
cigar?
size and same smoke.
Okay.
And I've always said, well, if it starts to canoe, then it was a poor roll. But you guys, do you have anything on that?
I would say be more patient when you light it.
Yeah.
Like spend a shitload of time lighting it.
Yeah.
Like toast the foot, be
Yeah.
slow about it. With those torches, like she said, keep it, like, you know when the torch starts to get red?
Yep.
That's the part.
Pull it
You
back.
want to avoid, again, touching the cigar directly in the flame. And so you should take your time and just keep rotating it. And it should just sit right above the flame. The sprinklers go off. Don't tell them it was me.
Smoke faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere, we're still doing the presentation.
Yeah, see smoke.
I got my bad.
So,
Just cover your camera.
this one is a little bit drier. Basically, you want to look at the cigar. It should kind of resemble a flashlight head. I better stop for this one goes up. It should resemble a flashlight head. It should be pretty evenly lit. Make sure that there's no edges that are burned a little bit more so than the other, again, to avoid that tunneling problem. But then what I like to do is take it away from the flame and just kind of blow on it. That's going to show you if there's any spots maybe that you missed. And then if you did miss any, just kind of give it that nice little touch up. The last thing you should do, I know, it smells beautiful. It's so inviting. Very
Cigars do
inviting.
smell significantly different than a cigarette.
Oh my
Like
God.
my dad used to
Yeah.
smoke a pipe, so I love the smell of tobacco.
It's very inviting.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's friendly because everybody, grandpa smokes, and they're friendly people. That's a lot of kids' first introduction is the smell of
That was mine.
tobacco.
Absolutely. Yeah. But after you toasted it up, the last thing you do is actually bring it to your mouth and then give it one last little light up. Again, don't touch the cigar directly into the flame. Just bring that flame up into your smoke. And then, find a nice pace to smoke it. Don't want to smoke it too fast to avoid it, overheating. And then just allow the smoke to kind of just palate and look for those different flavor points, those different notes. And then again, if you're talking, most times this happens to me all the time. If you relight your cigar, usually it'll go out. So make sure that you take off the ash. I see a lot of people, especially in lounges, that are smoking, big old hunk of ash, it goes out and they just start to relight it. It makes your cigar taste bad. It brings that charred kind of notes in there. Best thing to do is just clean it off, give it a nice, even on the baking soda kind of helps that sound.
I just gotta say, this has been the best class I've ever seen. I love it. I really